All right, it says we got 2 people watching, so that's me and somebody else. 3 people watching, so I'll give a little tug in case that's my ma'am. I set the live stream up early, but I didn't realize until I was going live that I set it for unlisted, not public. And so I had to go in and switch it to public literally as I was going live. So nobody got any kind of notification about this at all, which is my fault. I thought everybody was going to get about an hour's notification, but unfortunately, again, I had it set to unlisted, which means nobody got a notification. All right, ABC, how are you this evening? Aqua Balls, how are you this evening? And we've got that on live chat. Let's switch this over to my live chat. You're in the hospital. Well, I hope everything's okay. I'm not going to ask you personal questions about your health, but I'm about to have a puff too. I'm working on this bowl I just packed up a little while ago. Again, super silver haze. I'm going to be smoking the super silver haze for quite a while till I have my next plants come in. But I get the cool disco ball effect through the smoke. Mike, how are you? Oh, shit. Well, I hope everything's okay. I'm glad you got to the hospital. We're not really going to do any tank maintenance tonight. We are going to feed the tanks. But my main goal for doing the live stream here tonight is I've got some mushroom juice left that I'm going to drink at some point. And I figure while I'm down here killing time, I can do a live stream. We can get the fish fed, hang out a little bit, can make up for missing last night. As far as last night goes, I just had one of those days I have from time to time. My regular viewers know that every now and again I'll have a day where it's just like somebody shot me in the neck with a trank dart or drugged me or something. I just, no matter what I do, I cannot wake up. I just feel tired. Not like tired, like run down, but just like I feel like I need to sleep. Like if I don't go get in bed and sleep, I'm just going to lie down on the floor and do it because I'm going to go to sleep now. It's weird. Yesterday was one of those days. I woke up at 9 o'clock. At 12:30, I laid back down in my nest. I slept till like 4. I think I got up for a couple of hours. I laid down again at 6. I got up at 8:30, and then I was back in bed by 10:30 last night, and I didn't get up until 10 o'clock this morning. And so that's why I didn't do a live stream last night. I just slept for like a day. And today I feel okay. It's not like I feel like super refreshed or anything, but I definitely feel okay. Anyway, that's why we missed last night's live stream. Money for mushrooms, indeed. Steve. So I did check on my grow bag mushrooms yesterday just to see what it looked like. I very carefully opened it up. I figured it wouldn't hurt to have a look, and I don't think it did. The mycelium is growing all throughout the bag now, except for one corner where I didn't really mush it around enough. But at the rate it's growing, if I give it another week, which is pretty much on schedule for what I said, that whole bag is going to be filled. That little corner is definitely going to fill in within the next several days. I've been checking its temperature throughout the day, and with the door closed on the room it's in and the grow lights and everything in there, it is in the dark because I have it in a cardboard box all closed up, and I have it kind of out of the way, not where the grow lights are, but it's in the same room as the grow lights, and therefore it's about 82 degrees every time I check the temperature of the box. So that's ideal. Once I start flushing it or flowering it, I'll move it to a different area where it'll be about 75 degrees. And that lower temperature will also help encourage the mushrooms to start flowering or blooming or whatever you want to say. So hopefully in about 2 more weeks, we're going to start having some real mushroom trips. Hamilton, how are you this evening? You go to bed around 5 a.m.? I have days where I go to bed at 5 a.m. Yeah, holy crap, baby. See, that's a lot of shit going on. Jesus. Aquaballs, your name is George. I will try to remember that, but I will probably still just call you Aquaballs. I kind of have a policy of just calling people by whatever is on the screen. It's too hard for me to remember who's what and who says it's okay, because I have some people that don't mind if I say their name on my members area only, but don't want me to say their name publicly. And like, if you put your name up there as Aquaballs, that's what I'm going to call you. Laura. Yeah, I'm not going to be around too late tonight either. Again, I'm just on this to kind of get the fish fed, say hey to everybody, hang out for a little while. Probably around, I don't know, maybe 8 o'clock or so, I'll drink my mushroom juice. And when that starts kicking in, I'll go ahead and wind up the live stream. And then I'll be able to enjoy the rest of my night on my mushroom juice. I really do like that stuff. My new order was supposed to be here on Thursday, and I was saving what I've got for later in the week, because it's not going to be till Thursday, but it got updated and it's actually going to be out for delivery tomorrow, which is what I thought based on where it was in the tracking. But I did get an email saying that it's been updated. It's supposed to be here tomorrow. So I've got probably more than I'm going to drink left. It's about a third of the bottle left, which I don't think I want to drink that much of it tonight. But I'll finish most of that bottle off tonight, and then I get 2 more bottles in the mail tomorrow. So yes, I do enjoy that mushroom syrup a lot. And my chocolate bar is shipping this week too, so my once a month chocolate bar will be showing up this week. All right, let's move on to the next tank. Ooh, mead with mushrooms in it? That sounds interesting. I don't drink anymore, but that still sounds interesting. I'm assuming when you say mushrooms, you mean like psilocybin, actual magic mushrooms, and not like shiitake or lion's mane. I didn't really do much work in here today. I did come in and get a couple of tanks topped off, but I did not get this one wiped down, which I should have. But you're just going to have to live with it. I was really on the fence about whether I was even going to do this live stream up until about an hour ago, and then I just decided, man, it's not like I'm doing anything else. I may as well just go live for a little while. Like I said, I'll wait until the mushrooms start kicking in, and then I can say arrivederci to everybody. I've been giving them their pellets the last few feedings, so tonight we'll just give them some of the flake food. Thank you, Laura. Oh, wow, that sounds like an elaborate way of doing it. I thought you would have just soaked the mushrooms, like made the mead and then soaked the mushrooms in the mead. Yeah, I get no, like I said before, I get no stop signs when Laura's not here. But when she is here, everybody tries to act like, oh, look at me being a good stop sign person or whatever. But then when the cat's away, as the saying goes, I definitely found out with my last experience when Steve had given me all those mushrooms, like again, real mushrooms. If you're not familiar when I'm talking about my mushroom syrup, I get this stuff online. They call it magic mushroom syrup, and it does have a very psychotropic effect to it. It's powerful stuff. I like it a lot, but it's not made out of actual magic mushrooms. It's not psilocybin or anything like that in there. It's some weird different concoction. I think it's got DMT in it, to be honest with you. It's a really neat experience. I really enjoy it. But the actual magic mushrooms that Steve had given me, I had been eating them. And of course, if you eat more than just a couple of grams, you wind up with all the stomach cramps and gas and all that shit that you get from eating the mushrooms. So in the very last batch of it that I had, I looked up a couple of different methods, a way to make tea out of it. And I'd used a nice simple cold water method, and I made tea out of my last like 2 grams of mushrooms. And man, was it amazing. The onset was quick. It was smooth. I got nothing in the way of digestional issues. And I got a lot stronger of a trip than I was expecting, because I think I extracted more of the stuff, more of the psilocybin in the water than I would have had I eaten it, because we just don't digest mushrooms very well. So from now on, whenever I get mushrooms, which hopefully again is going to be in a couple of weeks, I'm going to have more mushrooms than I know what to do with. But when I consume them, it is not going to be in the form of chewing up mushrooms anymore. Those days are over. Next time I consume mushrooms, it's going to be drinking a glass of unpleasant tasting tea. But I can swig down a glass of unpleasant tasting tea pretty quickly, and then have no stomach cramps or issues or whatever. So just take a bottle of tea out to the reservoir with me and drink it once I'm out there. Spend the next 6 or 8 hours out on the water till it's safe to drive home. I'm definitely looking forward to those days. Unfortunately, they're going to be coming right as the season's ending, and I'm going to be in the basement for the next 6 months. Let's see. If the discus fish eat nothing but dry food, would you still feed them frozen worms? Everyone talking about bloodworms with fish parasites. Well, we can have a conversation about that. Well, I tried that, Mike. Swallowing the mushrooms. It works better, George. Again, the mushroom cell walls, and basically what the mushroom is made out of, is a material called chitin. And it is the same material that insect exoskeletons and like beetle wing casings and stuff is made out of. And we don't digest it very well at all. So if you're going to eat mushrooms, as gross as it is, you really need to chew them up until it's just a mushy paste in your mouth before you swallow it. Anything you swallow whole isn't really going to get broken down and digested, and you're going to miss out on a lot of what's really in there. Think about corn. When you eat corn, all the kernels that you don't chew and don't break open the cell wall, you don't really digest that. It goes right on through and comes out the other end whole. You have to break that cell wall open to be able to get out what the nutrients and stuff that are inside of it. And eating mushrooms is the same way. So if you are going to chew them up, I know it's gross. The way I always eat them is I chew them as little as possible, and then as soon as I can swallow them, I do. And that's what I was saying. I've been used to eating 1.5 to 2 grams of mushrooms and doing just that, 2 or 3 bites just to mash it up, and then I could swallow it. And so when I made the tea out of the same amount, I was expecting to get the same rough results. I've been eating 1.5 to 2 grams of mushrooms, every day now for the last 2 weeks. But when I did that by soaking it in water and making tea out of it, I tripped so much harder than when I just chewed them up and swallowed them. So you absolutely will get a higher degree of absorption if you make tea out of it. And you only have to let it soak for about 20 or 30 minutes in cold water. You don't even, and you want to grind the mushrooms up into, as finely ground as you can, break them up as much as you can, to expose all of those cells, but then soak it in water, a little bit of lemon juice, let it soak for half an hour, strain it off, and then drink it. And you'll have a fantastic trip. It'll be so much better than if you ate that same amount of mushrooms, believe me. Bob. Yeah, when I did the muscaria mushrooms, I ground them up into powder because I decarboxylated them and they were so dry that I just crumbled them. But when I did the psilocybin mushrooms, I broke them into small pieces and then I put them in my weed grinder and I ground it up in my weed grinder. So it wasn't powder, but it was really well ground. And then again, just put enough lemon juice, like I squeezed 1 slice of lemon over it, just enough to get it wet with lemon juice. I let it sit for 2 or 3 minutes, and then I put about a cup of water on it. and just let it float and swirl and sit in water for about 20 to 30 minutes. Poured it through a coffee filter, squeezed it and strained got as much of the liquid back as I could, and you're good to go. Just drink it from there, and so much fucking better. You get a nice fast onset. It only took about 25 minutes for it to start coming on to me. I'll never, unless I have to, I'm out in the fucking woods hiking and some hippie steps out from behind a tree and hands me some, let's eat them right now. Like, all right. But other than that, if I've got the opportunity to grind them up and put them in water for a little while, that is always the way I will take mushrooms from now on. It was so much better experience. Hey, Cornish. Oh, nice, Mike. All right. The question about the discus and the dry food and the parasites and all that stuff. First of all, let's dispel the myth and get that elephant out of the room immediately. No, your fish will not get parasites from eating frozen bloodworms. Period. I'm not going to go into any further discussion beyond that because it's just a silly notion to think that a manufacturer of fish food is going to sell food that is contaminated with live parasites that your fish can get. That's not a thing. What can happen, however, is your fish can die from eating too many bloodworms. I've been over this a million times over the years with people. I don't know why. I do have a friend that gave me a pretty good hypothesis of why he thinks it is. I don't know whether it's true or not, so I'm not going to get into it. All I know is that in my experience, I have lost a lot of fish that I fed bloodworms to, and it was usually the ones that especially early on, I gave a lot of bloodworms to because I thought it was a treat. I thought it's a natural food source. It's just like mosquito larvae or something, and they'd always fucking die. They'd always get bloated up and then they would die. And eventually, by the time I got to keeping discus, I was already like almost done with them on the fence. And I started reading some stuff about them, and I just came to the conclusion that, you know what? If they're like, I don't need them. The fish do not need them. They don't really have much of a nutritional value. If you actually look at the nutritional value on them, if you compare the nutritional value to just regular old Tetra flake fish food, the flake fish food is way more nutritious than the bloodworms are. The bloodworms cost more money. I got to keep them in the freezer. They're a pain in the ass to feed them. And I have to do it very carefully or else they'll kill my fish. Fuck that shit. Why would I fuck that stuff? I'm not going to put that in my aquarium or waste my money on it or whatever. It's completely unnecessary. It's only sold as a treat for your fish. And my fish don't act any damn different no matter what kind of food I put in there because they don't understand what a treat is. And so I just don't. Very, very early on, my discus got a little bit of bloodworms. Again, that was right when I was in that sort of giving up on bloodworms altogether. And then once I got the discus, and I just, you know what, I'm not taking a chance on losing one of these. This is a different kind of, it's one thing if I lose a molly or something. I'm not going to have a damn discus die because I fed them these bloodworms. And so I stopped. I've still got frozen bloodworms in the freezer in the other room. I've just never gotten around to throwing away. But my discus, for the most part, they've never seen beef heart. They don't know what beef heart is, as do no discus until you give it to them. It's not a part of their normal diet. And so they've never gotten beef heart. And for the most part, they've never gotten any real special diet other than, sometimes I'll put the granules in. Sometimes it's the Viber Bites or flake food. I do mix my food up a little bit for various reasons, but they've always gotten prepared dry fish food. I never put anything special in the tank for them. I've never treated my discus in any way different than my other fish. They get water changes no more frequently than my other fish. The tank maintenance is no different than my other fish. I've treated them like fish since day one. I haven't treated them like special fish ever. I've always just treated them like fish. I did take a few special precautions. I do have 2 heaters on the tank just to make sure the temperature didn't go too low. I do have a temperature regulator, so if anything goes wrong with my heaters, I'll get an alarm or it'll shut the heaters off if they're overheating. I don't want to lose those fish. And so I have had heaters stick on before and make fish soup. I've got preventatives to that kind of stuff going on in the tank. So in those regards, I have treated those fish slightly different simply because of their value. But as far as husbandry and maintenance, I haven't treated them any different than I treat any of my other fish. And I have some people say that they don't look right and they look stunted and this and that and the stress lines and all that. And whatever, people can say whatever they want. I think that tank looks fantastic. I get compliments on those discus all the time. I do have one discus in there that looks a little rough. It's like the runt of the tank. He gets picked on all the time. And I know it sounds cruel, but I leave him in there because I know if I take him out, it'll just be another one will become the bottom of the pecking order, and that will begin to happen to another one. And so this one's doing okay, but he doesn't look great, and you can tell he hides a lot. You can tell he's stressed. All the other ones look fine though. Again, I know that's a little cruel, but they're fish, and that's just how fish are going to act. If you're going to keep a group of cichlids together, you're going to have a sort of pecking order sort of environment going on, and you're always going to have one fish that's on the bottom of that. You remove the bottom fish, and the next fish in line is now the bottom of it. Or they may reconfigure, but somebody's always going to be on the bottom. Hey, Lex, how are you? All right, just getting caught up on some comments here. All right, go feed them bugs, Laura. I'll manage without you tonight. It's only we're not doing a full like till 10 o'clock live stream tonight anyway. Shirley. Oh, you heat the whole room? I couldn't really do that. It wouldn't be feasible. I'd have to heat my whole entire basement, and I don't want my basement at 80 degrees all year. In the wintertime, it gets pretty chilly down here, so I definitely need to have my tanks heated. Yeah, Flo's in there. Been yelling at everybody the last few days. I think she's getting ready to spawn. You should have seen her the other night. She was going nuts, chasing everybody around. Oh, glad to hear it, Lex. All right, I'm all caught up on the comments. If somebody would be careful or care to stop sign me enough there. I'm wondering where Zini is this evening. He sent me a message this afternoon, and I responded back, and I've not heard from him since. I know he was disappointed I didn't go live last night. For anybody that missed it yesterday, I was just having one of my days where I just needed sleep. I needed to get caught up or whatever. I have those kind of days from time to time, and I was not up for it, and so we just didn't do it last night. I figured I'd probably do one tonight anyway. In fact, if you were a member on my Discord, you would have gotten a notification saying I wasn't going live last night, and you also would have gotten the heads up that we were probably going to go live tonight. You know what? I should probably feed these guys now that we put the camera on them. That'd be a good idea. And I haven't even taken my mushroom juice yet. I do feel kind of spacey and out of it, though. It's going to be an interesting night. All right, I did throw the flake food in for everybody, but now we're throwing the crushed up or broken to pieces algae wafers. My pearl cichlid back there that you just saw dart out and grab some, kind of hanging out in the back on the back side of that log right now. It's getting really big really quickly. I swear it's like a teenage growth spurt sort of going on right now. And it probably is. He's about 1.5 years old. So this is probably going to be a several month growth period right up until it sort of tops out at its more or less adult size. Fish are indeterminate growth animals, meaning that there is no maximum size for any fish. Now, there's a maximum average size for most fish based on their lifespan, etc. But there's no real actual size for fish. And most reptiles, in fact, snakes and lizards and whatnot, are indeterminate growth animals as well. And as long as they're alive, they're still growing and they're still getting bigger. However, they go through growth period early on when they're very young, when they go from newborn to their first year or so. And then right as they're getting into maturity, they'll go through another growth period where they'll get up pretty close to what their maximum size is going to be. And then after that growth period, it begins slowing down. And the older the animal gets, the slower the growth becomes. And so once they get to be, let's say it's a koi that's 60 years old or something, that koi is still growing technically, but it's going to be growing so little that you're barely going to notice an increase in size. You might have to wait until it's 80 years old before it's significantly larger than it was when it was 60. And even then, it's not going to be that much larger between 80 and 60 because it's getting up into its maximum sort of age span where its growth is almost stopped. But as long as they're alive, they will still continue to grow. And I think that's what's going on with that cichlid now, is that it's going through that secondary sort of fast growth period where it's aging into maturity. It's about a year and a half old now. It was born in March of 24, and I got it in February of this year. And so I've had it for 8 months or something. And it was almost a year old when I got it. So it's about a year and 8 months old now. I would imagine over the next 2 months or so, it's going to get significantly larger, and then that growth is going to slow way down. Devil Driver, is that the weed you got? And it smells like Fruit Loops? That smells pretty good. I have, hey, Owen, how are you? How long is my striped Raphael? 8 or 9 inches, probably, maybe pushing 10 by now. It's big. We'll see it shortly. We got 2 more tanks to go through before we get to it. I love the way you can see the disco lights shining and flashing off the silver dollars. I don't know if you guys are picking that up or not, but every time I look at the tank, it's like mirror reflections coming off of them. I have I'm smoking on the Super Silver Haze. I have what is it called? Skittles. And I only grew one that grew pretty close to being fully ripened before the goddamn mites got to it and destroyed it. But while it was growing and getting close to being ripe, Fruit Loops would be a pretty good description of it, the way it smelled. It just had this, it was just fruity smelling. It smelled like fruit flavored candy, It smelled like Skittles. I know Skittles don't really smell like anything, but if Skittles had a smell, that like brightly colored candy, like that's what Skittles smelled like as it was growing. It just smelled like brightly colored candy. And so Fruit Loops will be a good description for that. I need to plant another one of them seeds and get them started. My tents are completely stripped bare. None of my tents have anything in them. I've been spraying them out every day with either alcohol or a pyrethrin spray. Technically, it's a spray that's for flying insects, but my stuff that's for spiders comes out in a stream, and I don't want to hose down. I spray the inside like I'm fogging it, but it is a pyrethrin, even though it's for flying insects. And pyrethrins are pyrethrins, or pyrethroids, I should say, technically. And so this pyrethroid, especially over repeated exposures, would kill any mites that existed. Adult mites can only live for about a week to 10 days with no food source. And so with the tents being empty, with me spraying alcohol and pyrethroids, and the tents being, just bone dry, nothing in them, hopefully a couple of weeks of that, and I'll be able to start feeding new plants back in. So I do have one small plant that survived my purge. I wiped everything else out and destroyed everything. I do have one, of course, it's a fucking Super Silver Haze. So I do have one more Super Silver Haze that looks good. I've been spraying it down with alcohol every day. And I have one sort of surviving Wicked Space that I sprayed down with so much insecticidal soap that all of the leaves fell off of it and died. And I let it sit, and now I'm getting new green shoots are starting to come out of it. So it survived, but it got wiped down to almost nothing before it started putting new shoots out of it. And even that, I'm still spraying with alcohol every day. If it dies, if the alcohol kills it, then so be it. I'm not taking any chances that these two surviving plants carried mites over with them. I would rather kill them and start from scratch than have to start this fucking mite issue over again. So hopefully we're done with the mites. I'm not saying we are, because I've said that way too many times for it to be true. But hopefully we're done with the mites after all this. But it's going to be a solid 2 months to 2.5 months before I've got weed to smoke again. So hopefully everything I cut down and have been saving up is going to be enough to carry me through that, because I sure fuck can't afford to buy anymore. Especially if I keep buying this damn mushroom juice. This shit's expensive. Speaking of which, I am still doing my mushroom juice fundraising drive. Although I'm not too enthusiastic about that, because I don't think I have a good time now. The more I think about it, the more I think that a whole entire bottle of this stuff would not be that pleasant. I think it might be a little too much side. All right, let me bring the ashtray in here. I got to repack my bowl because I just finished it off. So this is the Super Silver Haze that I got tonight that we're smoking on. This has actually been in here long enough now that it's almost cured. It actually has a nice fragrance to it when I open the jar. And then that means the other stuff I have in there, I've got some Blue Dream in there that's been in there for about the same amount of time. So that's probably cured by now too. And I probably got some decent Blue Dream that we could puff on. But I have so much Super Silver Haze. All of the shit I've got hanging and drying and then waiting in the wings to go into jars. All of that is Super Silver Haze. Even the stuff that's not even going to be smokable, but is going to get made into goo or hash oil. Even all that stuff is it's all Super Silver Haze. I had a whole tent full of the shit. I had 2 tents full of Super Silver Haze. So again, for the foreseeable future, you don't have to ask me what I'm puffing on. If it's something other than Super Silver Haze, I'll let you know. And that could be, as I said, I have a little bit of Blue Dream in a jar in there that I'm trying to let be fully cured before I start working on it. Kind of treating that like that's going to be a treat rather than the norm. Super Silver Haze is going to be the norm for quite a while now. It's a good thing I really like it. All right, let's move on to the next thing. I think we have eaten up all the food that was in there now, and then I'll get caught up on some comments here. Getting down to mushroom hour. I'm going to be drinking that mushroom juice here pretty soon. All right, I did go in here earlier today and took a net and scooped out so much of the duckweed. As of the other night when we were in here, you couldn't even see the water surface because of all the duckweed, and you certainly couldn't see a nice bright light shining on the fish because of all the duckweed. It basically made like a green curtain. So now you'll get a nice good look at the fish. I think we'll throw some Vibra bites. Now let's throw some more of the crisps in here. All right, let me see where I was. I was back here somewhere. Disco ball's gonna make me fall over. 88, no thank you. That's way too warm for me. Even 82, I'd be down here sweating. All right, let's see. Yeah, Laura, I had one of my days yesterday. Hey, Cassie, how are you? Yeah, I got to get another Skittles seed planted. Fruity Pebbles. Yeah, there's a bunch of them out there that smell like that fruity smell. I did look that mite juice up there, Laura. It was really expensive, and I've used a product similar to that before with the different oils in it. Well, my Raphael is like, God, how old is he now? I got him probably in 2012 or 2013, so he's 12 now, maybe. God, time goes by so fast. Yeah, I hear you, Bob. I've thrown away a ton of shit. I'm sick of throwing weed away. It gets three-quarters of the way done. Got these nice buds developing, and then I come in one day and they're all covered in spider webs and nasty looking. He's got an eighth for 25. I can get eighths for 25 occasionally, but it's usually some off-brand weird shit, or it's like popcorn buds or something like that. It's usually some low THC stuff with like 15%. The good stuff is anywhere from $30 to $50 an eighth. Occasionally, you'll see some stuff that's more expensive. Hey, Direwolf. All right, I am caught up on comments. If you want to stop sign me there, somebody. And Owen, if you're still watching, we got one more tank after this, and then we will be on the tank with the striped Raphael in it. So another 10 minutes or so, maybe 15 minutes, and we'll be on that tank. I did treat that tank with ChemiClean tonight, and so I'm getting tired of all the cyanobacteria just growing all over every damn thing in there. Once again, this has been my problem tank with cyanobacteria since the dawn of time. I just forever. Like, this is one of my original fish tanks down here. It was my very first large tank after my 29, and I've had problems with it since then. I've never gotten the cyanobacteria under control in this tank. I've fought it forever in this one. So it's finally getting ugly enough now that I decided, fuck it, I can just throw some ChemiClean in there. It won't hurt anything, and it might beat it back a little bit. I'll get in there in another few days, and we'll do another siphon, and we'll try to suck a bunch of the dead cyanobacteria out of it. Maybe I'll get some nearite snails. Well, I can. I got loaches in the tank, which is always one of the problems. Snails would help with it with the growth, but I have a bunch of loaches in the tank, so I don't. Snails are just out of the question of any kind, let alone a large snail that I have to purchase. I learned that lesson a long time ago. They die. Um, the loaches will try to eat a large snail, like you've got a mystery snail or a nearite snail. And so what the snails do is they just stay clamped down and hidden, because they know as soon as they expose any of their soft, meaty parts, that foot starts to come out. And yes, that is called their foot. As their foot starts to come out, it gets nipped on and bit and chewed on, and whoop, right back inside, and it just closes back up. And eventually it just starves to death because it has to just stay inside of its shell all the time. If it ever tries to come out, the loaches attack the shit out of it. So you just can't keep snails with loaches. And of course, the smaller ones, they just rip the meat right out of the inside of them. So snails are out of the question with a tank with several loaches living in it. Small mystery snails aren't small. Mystery snails are pretty big. The snails I have are the snails most people think of as being nuisance snails, and I love them, which are the ram's horn snails. And I also have like pond snails and bladder snails. The only real difference between the only difference between a pond snail and a bladder snail is the direction of their swirl of their shell. One goes clockwise and one goes counterclockwise, and I don't know what the difference between the two is. I also think bladder snails float a lot more than a regular pond snail does, but at a glance, they look pretty much identical. They look like the same kind of snail. They're the fairly small ones that have the more or less round shell. And then the ram's horn snails are, well, obviously by their name, are fairly self-descriptive. They've got that big curly Q, more flattened kind of shell that really does look like a ram's horn curled up. And they can get pretty big. They can get about, oh, I don't know, maybe more than half an inch across if you measure their wide side. They can get maybe close to 3/4 of an inch. So I like the ram's horn. You can get little tiny nearite, like bumblebee nearite snails and horned nearite snails, which you only get about the size of a big pond snail. And then nearite snails are the next one up. They're kind of medium size. They get about the size of a standard marble. But mystery snails can actually get pretty big. A mystery snail can get close to the size of a golf ball. All right, I think I'm going to do a dab this time. And you know what I'm going to do a dab of? A super silver haze. Because that's all I've got. I am still drinking my coffee because I expect to be up all damn night tonight, and I want to be up most of it. I do have to work tomorrow, but I don't have to get up any particular time early. I can get up whenever I get up. Quite literally, as long as I'm out of the house by 1 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock, I'll be able to get my shit done. I have very little to do tomorrow, but I do have shit I got to get done tomorrow. The fuck am I looking for? Oh, I'm looking for my torch. Came in here and set my coffee down for some reason and couldn't remember what I came in here for and walked back out empty-handed. It's because I wasn't thinking about it when I crossed thresholds. I was busy chatting and I lost it due to the threshold effect. I've explained that to people multiple times, and yet I still fall susceptible to it myself. Now that is a whole lot different than doing a hit out of a bowl. Wowie zowie. All right, let me go get my coffee again since I brought it in here for some reason. I keep thinking I need to be done with my coffee because we've been live for a little while now. So in my brain, it's like 9:15, but it's really only 8:15. So look at all that. And you can see how there's no air movement down there, very little. That's all one fucking giant vape. That's not even a hit off a bowl. That's off of hash oil. All right, we've seen enough of this tank too. So let's move on to the Gourami tank. This one is where my striped Raphael lives. So give me a half a moment here. We'll throw some vibra bites in this tank because the striped Raphael will definitely come out and start swimming around vigorously for the vibra bites. All right, there we go. So he'll probably make an appearance. He's coming halfway out. Laura, I honestly don't really see damage on my plants from any snails. The only thing I ever see the snails doing on my plants is scraping them. So if you don't have enough food source around the tank and they scrape your plants excessively, I suppose possibly they could do enough damage to the leaf surface that it could kill the plants off. but I don't think they're eating the plant. I think they're scraping the algae off the plant that's growing on it, like the anubias leaves and stuff. And so they help keep it clean, in my opinion. But they will eat dead plant matter. And so if you have, Java fern or something that has some dead brown tips on it, or maybe there's you got a little nutrient deficiency and there's some holes that developed and it's brown around the edges of the holes, the snails will clean all that brown shit off and leave the plant alone. And so for all the times people talk about having snails in your tank as though it's the same as having snails in your garden. And I do have a lot of issues with snails and slugs damaging my plants in my garden. I just don't have that issue in my tanks. I've never seen snails eat my plants. Like my plants just don't get snail damage on them. I'll even see the snails on the plants, as I said, but it always comes across as though they're simply feeding on what's growing on the surface of the leaf. They're not feeding on the leaf itself. So I don't know what to tell you. I can't say they don't, because I know snails eat plants and whatnot. But in my experience, I've never had issues with the snails actually eating the plants themselves. Mind you, my tanks generally have a lot of other stuff for them to munch on as well. Yeah, a lot of fish will eat the snails. When I first got started in the hobby, I and this again, this is where I stuck around the, I don't know, we'll call it the fish community or whatever, watching the more popular channels and watching a lot of videos and stuff when I didn't know anything. But as I began to learn and as I began to gain my own experience, and I know it's a loaded phrase, but do my own research, I'm not going to get into that now. That's when I began to realize, like, all right, I've learned as much as I'm effectively really going to learn from these sources. I need to move on, and then I reverted back to what I always do, which is I learn how something is supposed to be done or how it works or how it functions, and then say, okay, how do I adapt that to how I do things? How the way I want to do it. And the snail thing, just like the nitrate thing, I had to finally break away from the groupthink mentality of everybody says this to what is the reality. And the reality is nitrates don't do a fucking thing to your fish the way everybody used to claim they did. The other thing is, I too used to get freaked out when I saw snails in my tank. I still remember the very first time I saw a snail. It was when I only still had the 29-gallon tank down here and the 10-gallon up in the office. And I saw something moving in the substrate. I was like, what the fuck is that? And, this is when I would still just sit in front of the tank for hours at a time, just, studying the fish and watching it. And, I was still in those very, very early days and just absolutely enthralled by my aquarium. And the idea of having like any visible algae was considered bad, and having any snails in your tank was considered bad. The idea was like you were just supposed to have this pristine fish tank all the time. And as time went on, the snail thing was one of those things that I finally had to come to terms with myself and say, look, I don't care if everyone else says snails in your tank are a nuisance and a problem. Like, what is the fucking issue? Like, I can see them in there. They're not hurting anything. They're an occasional food source for my fish. They're part of every natural aquatic environment I've ever seen. I promise you, if I go across the street and turn a few rocks over in the stream, I'll find handfuls of these little snails everywhere. They eat algae out of my tank. Like, why does it, why fuck what everybody else says? These snails aren't a nuisance. They're just part of my natural aquatic environment. And once I was able to stop letting other people dictate what was or wasn't okay in my fish tanks, and I began to decide what was and wasn't okay in my fish tanks, I got over my issue with having algae. I got over my issue with having the snails growing in there. I'm still not happy about like what we're looking at now. This is way too much cyanobacteria and whatnot growing in there. But at the end of the day, I'd rather look at a tank that looks like this than a tank that looks like somebody just set it up an hour and a half ago, which is what some people do. And I'm not knocking those people for doing that. If that's what they like their fish tank to look like, then that's what they should do. But I've seen people that literally during water changes will take their plastic plants out of the tank and into the kitchen sink and scrub them and wash all the big rocks down, get a scrub brush and like make the tank clean when they do these water changes. And their tanks always look like they just set them up an hour and a half ago. And I don't like that look. I mean, it's pretty, but it looks like you just set it up an hour and a half ago. Anybody can set up a tank an hour and a half ago. It's like showing me an ivy hedge that's a foot tall. Like whoop de fucking do. You show me when that entire building is completely covered in manicured ivy, and now I'm going to be impressed because that took time. You've established that ivy all over that house. You didn't just do it an hour and a half ago. And when you look at a tank that looks like a natural environment, it takes time to get them to look like that. So the moment you look at a tank, maybe again, I'm not saying this while we're looking at the best example of tanks, but when you look at a tank that looks very natural and it looks like you just stuck your head underwater somewhere, you can't just make that tank look like that. You have to let that tank grow into that, and that takes time. There's a reason when we see like these moss covered rocks and lichen covered rocks, like it inspires something in us that we can tell there's time involved here. Like, man, that rock has sat there untouched for a very long time, because you just intuitively know it takes that long for lichen. That shit don't grow fast. And if it's covering that rock, that you just know by looking at it. And, if you look at an old cobblestone road that you can see the wagon ruts in, it's been hundreds and hundreds of years that road has been there functioning as a road. And, maybe on a smaller time scale, when you look at a fish tank that's got that patina of natural growth all over the inside of it, that this is a well-established tank. This tank has been up and running for a long time without issues. Again, maybe we're not looking at the best tank when I'm saying this, but the fish are healthy. The environment looks good. It's a very natural environment. You maybe see some snails on the glass or whatever. Again, I don't know why people freak out about that. And I would much rather, again, look at what we are looking at, which, again, isn't the prime example, but it still looks to me more natural and lived in than that tank that looks like it was set up an hour and a half ago. And again, that's just, these are just my personal feelings and the way I like fish tanks to look. And that's why my tanks look the way they do. But if you do like that tank that looks like it was set up an hour and a half ago, then, rock on, do whatever you like. Because that's the most important thing, is it's your fish tank and it should look like what you like it to look like. And that's kind of the point of the story. I had to sort of break away from what I was being told it should look like and see what what do I like? What do I want it to look like? I wonder why my angelfish is down on the bottom of the tank like it's standing on its tail. I've never seen it doing that before. I guess it's looking up, waiting for the food to come in. So we're putting the crumbles in there tonight, or the granules. A lot of these are going to make their way to the bottom pretty quickly, and my loaches down there will get lots of food, but enough of it will swirl around and float that the angelfish will get plenty of food too. And of course, the angelfish has no problem feeding right off the bottom. All right, let me see. Thank you, Laura, once again. It'll eat the pothos plants? That's interesting. Let's see. Hey, Morning Driftwood. That red tail bodia that you see in there sticking out is one of my oldest fish, believe it or not, and it always hides. Every once in a blue moon during feeding time, it'll dart out and dash around the tank and grab some food and then dash away again. And if you're really lucky, we'll see it. I'll catch it on video during a live stream or something like that. But by and large, all you really see is that tail sticking out in the back. And maybe if the striped Raphael goes back there and does its 3-point U-turn, it tussles with it a little bit, and then it goes back into hiding. That big piece of wood I have in the corner of that tank is actually sort of caved out underneath. It's sort of concave and creates a cavity under there. And that red-tailed loach has spent almost its entire life under there. Or who knows, maybe it comes out at night or whatever. But I've never come down here and, first thing in the morning or late at night or anything to like do something, ever caught it out. For years, I forgot it was in there until it got so big that you couldn't avoid seeing its tail sticking out. Well, thank you, Laura. I've been referring to the growth and whatnot in the tank as patina for years. No one else has ever, I've never heard anyone else say it, so I don't feel like I need to patent it. Or I guess in this case, it would be trademark or copyright it. Down it's the hill stream. That's interesting that they eat the pothos plant. All right. I could get another stop sign, please. It's almost 8 o'clock. So far, I got this on. What day did I get this? Was it Friday or Saturday? I think I got it on Friday. And I drank. No, I got it on Saturday. And I drank some and then went out on the reservoir for the afternoon. No, because I've drank it twice now. Anyway, I don't even, I'm getting my days all confused. I've hit off this bottle twice now. And can you see where the level of the liquid is? Pretty much right here. So out of two nice rockin' buzzes, I drank that much to get two, and I got that much left. So if I drank all of that tonight, I really feel like that would probably be a lot. And that would, well, I don't know. The closest I've ever come is I drank almost half a bottle, but that was over a period of about 4 hours of, it wasn't like I just kind of drank it. And even if I ever do drink a whole bottle on a live stream, I won't do it all at once because that I think would be a little unpleasant. But I would do, most like half the bottle or something, and then an hour later drink some more, and just kind of keep swinging it until it was eventually gone. I think it would just be a bit much to just drink that whole bottle. Fish Tropic. But as I keep saying, once I'm growing my own psilocybin mushrooms, then hopefully I will not really have to buy that mushroom syrup anymore because I'll have the real thing and I'll be able to just make my own tea and just drink some of that. And hopefully that'll be an even better experience. Does anybody want to see what my bag of mycelium looks like? I'd be all right with getting that out and gently having everybody have a look at it. I don't have to do anything with it except show it to you and then put it back in the box. And I noticed today that one of my 3 minnows or 4 minnows that's in the next tank we're going to be looking at, the 40, one of those minnows has a sore on its tail. I'm not sure what's up with that. All right, let me do this hit, and then I'll go and get the mycelium bag. Well, I'm going to cut them down and then dry them in my dehydrator and have dried mushrooms, and then I'm going to make tea out of them once they're dried. And I'll go easy. I'll definitely experiment with them and go on the cautious side once I do. So to get you all up to date on what I'm about to show you, if you aren't already familiar with what I'm talking about, I got a mushroom grow kit. It is for growing psilocybin mushrooms, and I got it's a vacuum sealed bag that has a little injection port, and then I got a syringe full of spores. I injected the spores. After 2 weeks, you're supposed to check, and you should have a nice lump of mycelium growing in the middle of the bag of substrate. And if you do, you break that all up and you spread it around all through the mycelium or all through the substrate. And then that allows the mycelium to grow all through everything. And then once it's fully through everything, you begin the process of flushing or flowering it. So we've broken it up and we're waiting for it to get completely grown through, but we're a good way there. I checked yesterday and there was a lot of mycelium growing in there, and so that's what you're about to look at if you haven't already heard me talk about this mushroom bag before. So let me just point you down here. In fact, let's go ahead and just start looking at this tank, because we're going to be over here anyway where I show it to you. So Gilgalad is in there somewhere. And once I put his little food in there, he'll probably come out. I see some blue over in the other. Oh, he's all the way in the back corner. Here he comes. He's way over there. Now he's around the front corner, coming around the home stretch. Look at him go. Vazoom! He knows what's up. Here you go, buddy. Is that what you wanted? All right, let me go get the box that the mushrooms are in. I swear it blows my mind that growing psilocybin mushrooms is actually far easier than growing weed. And you don't need any special equipment or any special lights. All you need literally is enough space for a box about so big. And honestly, you don't even need a box this big. So that's the bag. And that black dot is the injection port. And you can see that white mycelium growing all through it. It's even starting to come out on the top now. So that corner didn't quite get a lot of it mixed in, but you see how the bag is vacuum sealed? Have you ever tried to like mix something up in a sealed vacuum bag? It like doesn't want to mush around, but I think if we give that another week, it's not going to matter. That's got so much of that shit growing in there. So the way I can flower that, for lack of a more understood word, I can do it in that bag, or I can take that whole wad out and put it in a tub and just do it in a loose and open in a tub. So I think for this, the first go around, I'm going to do it right here in the bag, like the way it says. And then from then on, I'm going to start sort of experimenting on making my own substrate and maybe reusing this bag, or possibly trying to do it in a tub. And from then on, all I'll ever really have to do, if I can do that without having issues, the only thing I'll really have to do in the future is just buy spores. If I want a new strain, if I want to keep doing the same strain over and over again, I can just let the mushroom literally go to spore on its own and just do a new batch and just keep growing it from spore. So it should be interesting. I've never even thought up until very recently about growing my own mushrooms. But now that I'm doing it, it's kind of interesting, especially watching the progress of that mycelium. It was far further along when I opened it up after 2 weeks. I could have opened it up after probably 10 days, and I could have done the next cycle, breaking it up and mixing it around and everything. But when I opened it up at 2 weeks, it was grown all the way through the bag from the front to the back in about a 4 or 5 inch diameter plug all the way through the substrate. And it did that from the day I injected it. Exactly 2 weeks is when I checked it. Exactly 14 days. It went from being injected to that big plug all the way through that centerpiece. And it's only been 6 days since I broke it up and mushed it around. So what you just saw is 6 days after I broke it all up and shook it around. And that's what it looks like already. So if we give it another week and a half or something, that's going to be a solid block of fucking cheesy looking stuff. All right. All that, not a single comment. Am I missing comments here? I guess not. All right, this is my discus tank. And this is the last tank of the evening that we're going to feed. I do need to throw some food in my snail tank, which I forgot when we went past. And I need to throw some food in that snail tank, which is an unofficial snail tank. That's technically supposed to be my quarantine tank, but it's got snails in it. I mean, shrimp. I keep saying snails. My shrimp tank's here. And once it got shrimp in it, I don't really use it as a quarantine tank anymore. But in fairness, I haven't bought any new fish or had any fish that I needed to quarantine in God knows how long. All right. I don't think I could grow this mushroom on wood. As far as I know, all of the species of the psilocybin mushrooms are what they call dung-loving species. So that probably ought to give you a pretty good idea of what kind of mushrooms they are. That's the I see. When I was growing up, I always was told that if the way you found psychedelic mushrooms was you had to go out in a cow field first thing early in the morning before the sun came up, or like right as the sun was coming up, and all the mushrooms would have come up overnight. You harvest, the mushrooms off the cow shit, and if you get out there, like after the sun comes up, they all just sort of die off and fade back. And so you always have to be out there like right at dawn, and you have to harvest. And when I lived in Florida, I used to hear stories about people doing that shit all the time. They acted like it was as normal as could be. Yeah, you just go out and there's fine cow shit and mushrooms growing out of it, and there you go. There's your mushrooms. Um, I would always be afraid, like I'd be eating the wrong kind of mushroom or whatever. So I never even attempted to go look for them. But how they grow in nature, I don't know. Now, the ones I'm growing are also supposed to be like a fairly easy to grow species. And so I think that growing them in a tub with my own substrate, and I can even, since manure is part of my substrate, I can actually just add a little more manure and make it extra dungy. My concern is the sterility aspect of, if I'm going to be cultivating mushrooms, I'm going to be cultivating mycelium. That's going to cultivate any kind of mold or spore or fungus or whatever that might be in that tub as well. So I think I'll be able to do it, but I'll have to start by sterilizing the substrate, just basically bake it in the oven to kill any growth that might be in it, wipe all of the tub down with alcohol and just completely sterilize everything, and then close it up. Once I've injected the spores or something into it, just close it up and let it sit. And if I can do that without contaminating it with anything, I should be able to do roughly the same thing that we're doing in that bag. I should be able to just do it in an open tub and be able to get a big fucking tub full of it, which would be amazing because that would be a lot of mushrooms. I've seen people harvest those bags on YouTube, and you get like ounces of mushrooms out of one of those bags I just showed you. It's an amazing amount of mushrooms that grows out of that little block. All right, everybody, I'm going to go grab a swig of my iced tea. I'm going to put you on mute for a moment as I make a visit to the little fish keeper's room. Now I'm going to come back in and sit down. I'll start swigging on some mushroom juice, and we'll start winding the evening down with some chit chat. So if you're one of the roughly third of the people watching that is going to roll out when you see my face appear on screen, you can prepare yourselves now, because that is going to happen very shortly. So let me run in the other room real quick, and then I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Well, my voice is back. I'm on my way. All right, I'm going to need this. I'm going to need this. I'm going to need some of these. I'm going to need one of those. I'm going to need all of this. Some of them. A couple of these. All right, I think that's everything. Is that everything? I think that's everything. Well, if it's not, I can always get back up. All right. So you know how if you live anywhere near like a city or something where there's police activity on a relatively regular basis, you'll see sometimes, red light or red and blue lights flashing on your wall, and you're like, what the fuck? You realize it's like a cop car out front, and the light's coming in through the window, and you're seeing like the flashing light on the wall. When I was in the bathroom, the wall behind the toilet just kept flashing, like this red light that kept flashing on it. And I grew up right on the edge of Baltimore City, and I know it's been 25 years since I've lived there. But as soon as I saw those flashing lights, my instinct was to look over my shoulder, to look out the window to see if there was like a cop car out front or whatever. And I had to catch myself and say, no, it's definitely just my disco ball light in the other room. If there was a cop light flashing on my wall in there, I'd be in some big fucking trouble, because he'd pretty much have to be in my basement to make the light flashing on where I was. Again, that's, because it is in the basement, obviously, but my brain still, after all these years, I still immediately think police when I see that flashing red light. All right, are we still whirly gigging or okay? We're still alive. Feels weird sitting down this early already and winding down for the night. So does anybody have anything specific on their mind? Any questions? Etc. As I've said earlier, I don't know whether you missed it or not. I'm not going to stay live too long tonight, just kind of doing a fish feeding, hanging out for a little bit sort of thing. But I am getting ready to drink some of my mushroom juice, and we're going to start winding it down after that. And then I'm going to start my evening after the live stream's over, which is going to be pretty soon. So if you got something you want to chat about or whatever, now would be your chance. I put too much tea in that. I use those squeeze bottles that have the flavoring, and I overdid it. I have to top that off with some water. That was a bit much. Did not know that, Mike. But I did know that the British Empire basically built its entire empire on spice, yet vehemently refused to ever use any of it in their own food. My theory has always been, a good drug dealer don't get high on their own supply, and therefore the British people simply refuse to use the valuable spice that they could sell to other people, and ate beans on toast instead. So I don't know, but that's just my theory. All right, everybody, it's 8:15. I'm gonna have my swig. I don't know if you can really tell how much is in there or not, but oh man, I can smell the grape juice already. It's up to about right there. Yeah, that was a pretty good sized mouthful, and it's still only down to there. Remember, that much of it gave me 2 nice experiences. So that much of it is probably completely unnecessary. What I just drank is probably going to be a nice rockin' buzz for tonight, but I might do another little swig later. What I like doing when it gets down really low like that is put water in it and maybe put it back up to here. That way I can do swigs, and I feel like I get that nice grapey flavor. Still fairly potent, but it allows me to sort of slow down how much I'm consuming while still feeling like I'm having good swigs. Because once you get down to a little bit, it's hard to, I'm supposed to put like drops on my tongue or something at some point. So if you mix it with water, it makes it a little more realistic. You can drink half of that a lot easier than you can drink half of that. So we'll see where that gets me in a little while. Last time I drank some, when I went out on the reservoir, I kind of paid attention to the whole up and down experience and everything. It took about an hour and a half to fully come on to me, and then I was peaking at about 2.5 hours, and then after that I started coming down the backside of it nice and gradual, and by 5 hours or so I was driving home feeling relatively normal. I could still tell I had a little tiny bit of buzz going, but by 5 hours after drinking it, maybe 5.5 hours after drinking it, I was pretty close to feeling normal again. So it's a nice ride. A little expensive, but it's a really, really enjoyable ride. You think that's a good hypothesis, Mike? Um, Justifying what's to who? Um, I would guess again. Don't if it's your career is on the line, please do not take my word as gospel. I'm just speculating, thinking out loud here. Use your own judgment on this. But as far as I gather, there's nothing in this that is illegal in any way, not even regulated in any way. And it also is the kind of stuff that there's just no fucking way if you get a standard drug test at work that they test for this kind of stuff. Again, they test for the opioids, they test for amphetamines and that kind of stuff. They're not testing for weird trace chemicals and some fucking bizarre root mushroom thing like that. They're not testing for that. That would be a very expensive specific test they would have to do to find those types of chemicals. And even if they do, none of what is in this mushroom juice is in any way illegal. Cornish has a little bit of experience with it, and if they want to chime in and talk about their experience, they seem to not be as affected by it as me, although I do kind of consume a lot of it when I do it. I have a really good experience with it. It's not like a trip. I've stopped calling it a trip. That's why I just keep saying experience, because I don't know what else to call it. It is definitely an experience. It's not a psychosomatic thing. It's not in your mind. You will definitely know you've consumed some sort of psychotropic stuff once you get up to a certain level, but it's just really calming. It's really relaxing. There's a little bit of a muscle relieving sort of effect. Doesn't make me drowsy. The other stuff that I did, there's legal mushrooms. When I made that into tea, that made me. I slept like a rock on that stuff. I got some good sleep on that. Um, but this mushroom syrup doesn't make me sleepy. In fact, 8, 9 o'clock, if I'm drinking this, I'm probably going to be up most of the night. Um, but it doesn't make you feel jittery or anything like that. It's not like a caffeine sort of experience, but it's definitely mental. You definitely go through some sort of, again, trip's not the right word, but it's definitely sort of a mental experience. Um, but it's a good one. I've never had a moment on this stuff that's felt uncomfortable or anxious or anything like that, whether I've been at the grocery store, out of my kayak, down here in my basement, out in the yard. It's just a nice, pleasant experience. I really enjoy it. But again, you get up to drinking a couple of swigs like I just did, or eating maybe half a candy bar, and you're going to get some visuals, and things are going to definitely look interesting for you, and you're going to stop and look around a lot. And, it's absolutely a psychotropic experience, but it's just not the same as a real mushroom trip. Again, even describing a real mushroom trip is difficult. The only reason I feel like I can do it at all is because there's enough people out there that have had either a mushroom experience or an acid experience or ayahuasca or something that they can kind of relate it to. This stuff, this mushroom juice, I really don't know what to compare it to. It's its own thing. It really is, but it's a really enjoyable thing. I really look forward to my experiences with it. I'll like get all my shit done and out of the way so I can just sit down and not have to worry about anything and just spend the next 4 or 5 hours just enjoying this. It just feels nice. I like it. Again, you'll have to try it to experience it. Two gummies. Yeah, what I just drank, San Pedro cactus. Interesting. I've heard of that before, but I've up only recently because I've been getting back into psychedelics. I used to do psychedelics fairly often when I was young, and when I bought that first candy bar from this company, I thought it was psilocybin, and when I took it, it wasn't like psilocybin. It was weird, and so I thought, well, maybe I need to take more, and so I took more, and it was the same experience, just more of it. If that makes sense, it was just like buzzier. I kept thinking if I took enough, I'd sort of cross that threshold and it would finally become a trip and I'd see the visuals and the trails and all, and it just doesn't. And eventually I figured out that's because it doesn't have any psilocybin in it. It doesn't have any of the other common mushroom, the Amanita muscaria. It doesn't have any of that in it either. It's just made up of all these other things. It does say when you look into what the ingredients are, it contains some sort of mimosa something or other root, and that contains small amounts of DMT. So I think that's where the sort of psychotropic experience is coming from, is there's probably small amounts of DMT in this, but it's got like 9 different kinds of mushrooms and it's got all these different weird herbs and shit in it. It's got multiple different vitamins and vitamin B12 and all that kind of shit in it. Whatever the fuck it is, it's some neat stuff. Like I say, if you do a little bit, if you do that sort of small end dose, it's just this nice, pleasant, relaxing experience. You just smile, everything looks nice. Once you do a little, you get up there a little bit more, it starts getting really, I don't know, it gets really interesting. It's just a really, really pleasant experience. So again, you'll just have to try it. So far, everybody on the stream here that's tried their products has liked them. So I'm in good company. Yeah, I can't wait to get my actual real psilocybin mushrooms rather than this juice stuff I've been drinking. Yeah, we can. Again, as far as the drug test things go, I generally wouldn't worry about that. I mean, do you get drug tested very often, or is it just that random thing that you're worried about? Um, let's see what's in Treehouse. All right, what's in Treehouse mushroom gummies? Let me put my old man disguise on. Now I look like Clark Kent. Let's see. Show more. All right, Treehouse mushroom gummies do not contain psilocybin or Amanita muscaria mushrooms. Instead, they use a proprietary blend of legal, neurotropic, and aptogenic and magic mushroom extracts to create euphoric effects. This is the AI overview, so take that with a grain of salt. The main active ingredient in their gummies, syrups, chocolate, etc., is 5-HTP or 5-hydroxytryptophan. That is a precursor to the neurotransmitter serotonin and has the same effect as like a serotonin booster would have, I believe. That is a naturally occurring product you can get in different foods. Our bodies produce a little bit of it. This probably just has a lot of it, but that's 5-HTP or 5-hydroxytryptophan. Rhodiola rosea is an adaptogenic herb that may help the body adapt to stress. It's also got lion's mane mushroom in it. I don't know what that's supposed to do. Mimosa hostilis root. That's what I was talking about. The Mimosa hostilis root bark contains psychoactive compounds, or the Treehouse states that their product does not contain illegal psychedelics. So the mimosa root, what that that psychoactive compound in the mimosa root is actually DMT, which is another naturally occurring psychedelic. But it's again, it's not the thing they test for when they do drug testing. It would have to be such a specific test. They'd have to put it on a spectrometer and do it like a silica gel spectrometer where they run it through the plate and time how long it takes to run through it and all that. I can't imagine what in the God's good earth they would ever want to do that test for. I mean, unless you came in to work talking about all the little yellow fairies you were talking to, and they'd probably send you to a psych ward before they do a drug test. So I legitimately wouldn't worry about it as far as, you know, you doing it. And most of that kind of shit wears off within 72 hours anyway. So just do it on a Friday night, or if it's a holiday weekend and you're going to have the Monday off or something, do it. And 3 days later, even if you got tested on Monday morning, all it should be out of your system anyway. Zane, where have you been? You were at coffee. Right. Well, we're winding down now. I already drank my mushroom juice. Oh, no, I hear what you're saying there, Laura. I just didn't know if it was really a common thing that happened regularly, or if you just, you know, you just weren't willing to take the chance or whatever. I know when I used to drive trucks, like I was really throwing the dice. It wasn't one of those may or may not happen. Like quarterly, they randomly selected drivers to go down. So I literally, my name was in the lottery every 3 months to go take a drug test when I drove a truck. Um, you never knew when that was going to be. It could have been at the end of one quarter and then the beginning of the next quarter. So they were 3 weeks apart. You know, so it wasn't like if you got your test, like, I don't have anything to worry about for 3 months. You know, it wasn't like that at all. It was random as fuck. So I can understand it. And, you know, throwing a career away just for a couple hours of a good time on a Friday night probably isn't the best trade-off. That might not necessarily be said to be a wise choice. But again, I really don't think there's anything in these Treehouse products that either would get you in any trouble. I don't think there's anything illegal or restricted in it. And I don't think even if they gave you a drug test while you were on the stuff, I don't think anything would actually show up in the kind of drug test they do. I assume it's the same kind they would always do as a truck driver. You know, and if you were in a work-related accident or whatever, it's just the standard run-of-the-mill drug screening, and they test for opioids, amphetamines, barbiturates, and that's about it. They're not testing for weird, they're not testing for Molly and shit like that. They're just testing for the basic drugs and marijuana. They always test for marijuana. Marijuana is their ace in the hole, though. They know how long that stays in the body, and they know that they can always just sort of hold that over you, and you can get high, and days, weeks later, you can still fail drug tests from it. That's a bunch of bullshit, but they still use it. Personally, I think if you're not currently on the substance while you're at work, it's none of their fucking business. If you show up and you're talking to the little yellow fairies again, maybe that's concerning. But what you do on Friday night's none of their damn business. I know that's not the world we live in, but that's how I view that from my personal point of view. Hey, Robert. Anyway, I genuinely think you'd be fine if you bought one of these candy bars or something and, Friday evening, ate 3 or 4 pieces of it just to see what it was like. I think you'd have a good time, and I don't think you'd have anything to worry about with your work. But again, that is still also up to you. I don't buy it that it's just like they say that the lion's mane mushroom is a nootropic mushroom, which again, I'm not sure what nootropic means. Um, but all this stuff reads like, the same shit you read on the bottle of beetroot extract or echinacea powder or one of these other things. It's supposed to enhance focus, or it's supposed to improve your memory and concentration and all that kind of stuff. Does eating lion's mane mushroom really do all that? I have a lot of experience with psychedelics over the years. Not a wide variety of psychedelics, but I know what mushrooms are like. I know what LSD is like. This is something. This is a psychotropic drug. This isn't fucking lion's mane mushroom or B12 that's making me feel extra alert. There's definitely something in there that gives you a psychotropic effect. And again, if it's got that Mimosa hostilis root bark in there, that is known to contain DMT. So it very well may contain small traces of DMT. And that would be my suspicion as to why it gives you the effect it gives you, because it's absolutely a psychotropic effect. You can drink chamomile tea and notice an effect from it. That chamomile tea will calm you down. If you drink licorice tea, it'll make your mouth and throat a little numb. If you've got a sore throat, licorice tea is really good for that. So you can, use these herbal remedies and stuff that will have physical impacts on your body. But I know what fucking tripping is, and I know what psychedelic drugs are. And this shit ain't no fucking, soothing cough drop of herbal medication. There's absolutely some psychotropic drug in this juice I'm drinking that makes me feel this way. And again, based on the ingredients, we can find out, because it's kind of a secret recipe. They don't really tell you what's in it. It's got to be DMT. It's the only thing I can think of that would be making me feel the way I'm feeling. Probably very small amounts of it, but it would still be DMT. Again, that's not something they test for in regular drug testing. And then everything else they list doesn't even sound like a drug. Again, it's the 5-HTP, which you can get by eating different foods. Your body naturally produces that. It's a precursor to a hormone in our body, or not a hormone, a neurotransmitter. So again, I don't know what's in it that makes me feel this way, but I can't imagine it's something that's going to show up on a drug test, even if you did get randomly popped for it. I'm not an expert, but I really genuinely believe that. I'm not feeling very bright-eyed or bushy-tailed today, to be honest with you. I did drink a lot of coffee preparing for my experience tonight. Again, I can't really call it a trip, but I did swig about half of what was in there. It was up to about here, and now it's down to about there. So I had a good swig like that, and that probably should be enough to give me, a reasonable experience. I'll drink more of that as that starts to roll on as the evening wears on. But it's been, what time did I do that? 8:15. So it's only been 20 minutes. We got another half an hour or so before, now maybe another 15 minutes before it really starts even rolling on to me. And in fact, what I'm going to do is go top this off with some water so I can drink a little more of it without swigging too much. So let me do that, and I'll be right back. Oh, holy crap. My wife must have cooked something because it smells really good flavor coming down the steps. Man, she made brownies yesterday, and I don't even like brownies, and these are the best fucking brownies I've ever had. They're like the perfect amount of uh, mushy in the middle, but not overly chewy. They got just the right level of chewy that doesn't make them taste undercooked. The edges are crispy, and it's got like the nice crispy sort of outside edges, but it isn't overly done and dry and burnt. They were absolute perfection. I've never had brownies that I've genuinely enjoyed eating before, and I could have fucked up that whole goddamn tray of brownies. I've been trying to stay away from it. I ate another one today, and it's like, God damn. I had to break them in half and set them down because they're really decadent. I mean, you eat one, it's like, and then clunk, you feel like you just swallowed half a brick of lead. At least based on my diet, what I'm used to eating, half of a brownie feels like a lump of lead in my stomach. But holy crap, are they good? Did you enjoy that title, Zany? I was hoping somebody would enjoy that title. I sure got a kick out of typing it. I said something to my wife today about how I was doing a live stream tonight. She's like, "Are you?" I said, "Yeah, it's going to be a special holiday presentation, special live stream, special presentation, or something like that." And she just got to laughing. And so at that point, I decided, well, I guess that's what I got to name it. So that's why tonight's special presentation is so special, because it is a holiday special. All right, now I got to wind down with the coffee. It is getting almost 9 o'clock. I rinsed that grape flavor out of my mouth. I really do enjoy the flavor of that syrup. It's like the grapiest grape ever. Doesn't taste like real grapes. It tastes like that, like a candy, like a hard candy, or a grape lollipop would taste like that. Well, Bob, maybe someday, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Yeah, I was on the fence about putting extravaganza in there because it's technically not really an extravaganza. It's just me. But I figured, who cares? It's fucking YouTube. All right, let's not get me all depressed by talking about how we're in the final days of our fucking late stage capitalism, post utopia society that's about to crumble into ashes. I was having a good time before that, so let's just move on and get back to some fun stuff because I do not want to ruin my mushroom juice experience thinking about that kind of horrible shit. We are going to hell on a fast train. All right, this stuff, when you shake it after you put water in it, can you see the foam is up to here? Let me try turning this light on. Maybe you'll be able to see it better. Yeah, you see how much foam is in there versus how much water now? But I am going to drink some more of that. I guess you can see this side better. I feel like that was a lot of it. But that's why I mix it with water so I don't accidentally overdo it. All right, we're going to go put this away now because I think that is plenty. This stuff is labeled as high potency, and they're not kidding. One serving is a teaspoon, but I think if you did a single teaspoon, it would probably be enough that you'd notice it. I feel like my mouth's not working tonight. It'd probably be it would probably be enough for you to notice if you did a single teaspoon of that syrup. With that mouthful I did on the first one was probably more than a tablespoon, so we're probably talking maybe 4 teaspoons was that first swig, and then I just did maybe another one. So again, 5-6 teaspoons. That's when you get up into a really fucking nice chill night with some nice soft lighting, good music, and you have a good time. Exactly, Bob. Just keep adding water, I'll never run out. That is genius. Never even thought about that. That's like holistic medicine. The less that's in there, the higher I'll get. No, I don't think my wife is going to get money for her brownies, although she probably could for that batch. I don't think my wife cooks consistently enough to do something like that, to be honest with you. Um, oh, you know what? Let's do a bong hit. I got my bong out earlier. I was doing some of those. I've kind of learned, you'd think after 7,500 years of smoking weed, I'd know how to do this properly by now. But I've learned that instead of packing the bong up with like a big old fucking mash of weed and getting multiple hits out of it, it's just a lot better to do little, pea-sized nugs like yay big, put that in there and do one hit, call it done, cash it out, and then put another one in when you're ready. Man, that smells good. See, I think this is pretty much finally fully cured. It's a wad stuck in there. So, pretty good looking. But that's all the super silver haze. I do have more hanging up drying. But that's what we're hitting on tonight. Again, it smells pretty nice, so I'm pretty sure it's cured by now. And we're not doing anything special. We're just hitting out of my everyday smoker. I don't even have any ice in there. Hell, I didn't even clean it before we went live. Look at that water. I used to go I would go so long without cleaning the water. By the time I finally got in there and cleaned the water out of it, it was so foul. You needed a spoon to get it out. Now, because it's going on live streams and being in front of a camera, I got in the habit of like cleaning my bong like almost every time before going live. So several times a week it would get cleaned out. I don't do bong hits so much on the live stream anymore. So I don't clean it out as frequently, but I have gotten in the habit of keeping my bong nice and clean. And that now to me seems filthy dirty, when before the water would be like jet black for weeks at a time before I'd change it. The problem with that is, I mean, once you do a single bong hit through water, if you then spill that water, it's just foul. It stinks. If you let it get to the point where it's black and it's been in the bong for God knows how long and you spill that, that's nasty. That'll ruin your house. See that? Nice, easy bong hit, no fuss, no muss. No coughing. Ouch. All right, I can definitely feel those mushrooms starting to roll in on me too. Just got a message. Hey, King. With the consistency with cooking, is that what you're talking about, Laura? I'm trying to scroll back to what you might be referring to. Yeah, my wife makes some stuff. She's got a lot of recipes that she likes to make that she'll either make for lunch or, for dinner. For like, we do our own thing. She makes her food for herself and I make my food for myself. But occasionally I will eat what she makes if it's something I like, which isn't often, but occasionally. And sometimes she hits it out of the park and it's just so good and everything's just right. And other times it's just like there's too much of this or not enough of that or something's just off. A lot of times won't have all the recipes, so she'll try to swap something out for something else and it'll just be not right. Again, she's really good when she is on, but there's no consistency. There's not enough consistency to just be able to sell it. Weird salad indeed. All right, everybody. I'm definitely starting to feel mushroomy. So we're going to start winding down. I told you we'd be winding down by about 9 o'clock-ish tonight. Keep seeing my gigantic new microphone on my shoulder. I feel like I have a little tiny bird perched on my shoulder that's keeping me company. At least I don't look like I have a bunch of mouths when I look up there tonight. At least not yet. I guess if I sit here long enough, it'll start to look like I have multiple mouths. I also did trim up my mustache that was all big and overhanging my mouth before, so maybe that'll have a impact as well. All right, everybody, the night's about to start getting interesting for me. Oh, I got to look at this notification first. I don't know what that's in reference to, but it's funny. All right, let's get back to my YouTube. There we are. How I became a food truck owner? I don't think I'd ever become a food truck owner. You have to talk to people and sell stuff and do stuff. Get up early, work long hours. Screw all that. All right, everybody. I don't know if you can tell, but my grin is starting to get wider and wider. I feel like the top of my head's going to come off here soon. And that's how you know it's kicking in. It starts with the grin and the nice warm feeling in my tummy. Starting to not know what to do with my hands. There's no way anybody's going to convince me there's not actual psychedelic drugs in this mushroom juice. It's just not fucking, this is not vitamin B12 that makes me feel like this. It's just not. Yeah, talking about getting high on your own supply. If I was a food truck owner, I wouldn't be this svelte and sexy by any means. I would definitely be a lot more overweight. All right, everybody. Final thoughts. Last call, etc. I'll see if I can hang on another 10 minutes or so, but I'm really pretty much ready to end it right now. This is what I was waiting for. I like the disco lights through the smoke. I keep forgetting how early it is tonight, too. I feel like as soon as I end the live stream, I'm going to be turning the fish lights out, and I don't usually turn them out till 10 o'clock, or on live stream nights, a lot of times I don't turn them out till 11. So tonight I'm going to end the live stream, and then it's going to be an hour before I even turn the fish lights out, which is just going to be weird. I'm already discombobulated. Hey, Winston. I'm already discombobulated from the holiday weekend. You know, obviously my wife did all of her Sunday stuff today, you know, getting her lunches ready, doing her laundry for the week and all that stuff. But I also slept almost all day on the actual Sunday. And so that day just kind of got vanished out of my head. It doesn't feel like it even existed or happened. And now here we are Monday, and it really feels like a Sunday night to me. Not that any of them matters because they're all just another day. Oh, Zini took a hostile takeover of the chat. That's all right. There wasn't much chat going on anyway, Zini, and we're winding it down. So you can feel free to message me when the live stream is over if you're still up and awake. I'm going to be up for probably the rest of the night. So if you want to chat and hang out or whatever, you're welcome to hit me up. Otherwise, I guess nobody else is going to be saying goodnight or anything because they're not. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to wind it down and say goodnight then, since I've offered the last call several times, and that's all I've gotten. So we will say goodnight. As far as I know, we'll be back Friday again. It's no guarantee. It's just going to depend on how I feel on Friday night. Wednesday, of course, I will be back for my members only live stream. If you're not familiar with that, you know, you can join the channel membership. It's $2.99 a month. I do a members only live stream on Wednesdays. We will be back for that. And then as far as Friday, we'll see how Friday goes. You know, I'm expecting to be here, but you never know. don't take it as gospel that we'll be here on Friday. So there you go, Hamilton. I will see you later, Bob. I will catch you later. Winston, Zini, of course. So, all right, everybody, I had a good time tonight. Hopefully, my night is just getting started. So, I will see you all on another Wednesday or Friday. Good night.